I would like to promote the gifts of the Spirit to each listener or those of you who are watching this on your phone or whatever. I would like to say that we believe in the gifts of the Spirit, and they have functioned and they have operated through this ministry since 1957. And Sister Hancock and I married a few years later, and she's been with me in the ministry ever since. The gifts of the Spirit have been a very strong part of every revival that we have preached, every seminar we have taught. We have reached, God only knows, the numbers of people that God revealed their needs, their problems, their circumstance by the word of knowledge, by the word of wisdom. Working of miracles has been a very strong part of our ministry since the beginning. When the first miracle that I saw was a sister that was elderly and in a wheelchair, and she attended the Mark Street Oneness Pentecostal Church, and the Spirit of God moved upon me to pray for her. I had only been in the church a very short time and had no real knowledge of what could happen or would happen. But they told me that if I would ask God to heal someone in faith, that God would heal them. She came out of the wheelchair by the power of God. The next wonderful miracle that we saw at that early age of, I guess I was probably 16 years old when I first saw my first miracle. And not too long after that, we saw the Lord create a divine miracle for a child. The mother and the child came to the services, and the Lord began to deal with me when the child came forward to be prayed for. I was not the pastor of the church. I was merely someone who attended the church, but the Lord spoke to me and told me that He would heal the child. I believed it with all that was in me. And I prayed for the child, and I prayed for the child's eye, because that's what the child asked me to pray for. And I prayed for the child's eye, not knowing the circumstances, and I said, Lord Jesus, will you create a divine miracle for this child? And let this child not only be healed of this vision problem, but let the child have 20/20 vision. And the child said, Mommy, I can see. And the mother was a little coarse and a little difficult, and she didn't want to believe that. She said, you can't see. He said, can too. She said, you cannot. He said, can too, and proved that he could see when the eye was allowed to look at the preacher's hand, and asked the preacher, the pastor of the church, held up fingers, and the child did the same, healed by the power of God. I heard from the child years later, and the child was still seeing out of that eye. And the real miracle was that it was not a normal eye, but it was a plastic eye that the child had received after his father got into a wreck and his eye was torn from his head. And from that time forth until now, I've heard from this person not too long ago through friends, and he is still praying for the sick. He's still preaching the apostolic doctrine, and he's doing a work for God. That's a long time for a miracle to last, but when God does a miracle, he does it correctly, right, absolutely perfect.